Hello my friend, this is a video on existential freedom as Andreas Salome saw it. It's part of my series on existential freedom to mark the publication of my book Beginning to Live, the Art of Existential Freedom. Now, Andreas Salome has a unique space in history. She was a very early feminist when feminism wasn't a thing. She was a friend and colleague and peer to Nietzsche, to Rilke, the poet, and to Freud. But her view of freedom was quite her own and much more affirmative and holistic than that of anyone else, really. Because for Andreas Salome, freedom is not a struggle against isolation or a dismantling of the self, but a radical yes to the totality of life. It is an embracing of life in all its contradictions. So, for her, humans are caught between two drives. Bit of Freudianism slipping in there. But it's different. So for her, the first drive or desire is that for individuation, more like Jung, being a unique self, becoming who you are, on the one hand, and on the other hand, a yearning, a longing to fuse with all that is, with the one, with the infinite. So freedom is to find a path between that individuation and that fusion. It is about finding a balance. You are not free if you are only an isolated ego that is trying to prove itself and dominate and establish itself. You are also not free if you are swallowed by the crowd, or if you give away your earthly life for something about heaven. You have to find a balance between being truly of the earth, truly yourself, and truly fused, united with the infinite and all that is in the universe. So true freedom is your capacity to kind of move between those two, to oscillate between those important poles that are like the North Pole and the South Pole of the roundness of your free existence. So you become a truly distinct individual on the one hand, whilst you remain deeply rooted in the universal flow of life. She did take some things from Nietzsche as well. She was deeply influenced and loved Nietzsche's amor fati, the love of fate. Remember, to love everything that happens in your life, whatever it is. But she added some psychological depth to it. It was about having to create a self, sculpt it. She saw freedom as an artistic task, an art of taking everything that happens to you, the tragedies, the joys, the dramas, the traumas, and weave them into a coherent, well-woven totality, a beautiful whole, if you like. She also believed it was very important that there was an absence of regret, because to be free, you do not want things to have been different. You accept that what happened was necessary and that you did what you could, and you own your life so completely that your fate and your own will merge into one. There isn't a struggle between what happens to you and what you choose to do. They merge together through the amor fati. She even had a very different take on narcissism. She had a positive spin on narcissism. You know, Freud saw narcissism as a developmental stage that every child needs to go through in order to become a separate person. But a stage that has to be overcome. But for Salomé, narcissism was a source of existential strength. So for her, it was defined not as a love of yourself in that kind of negative, pathological way, but a simple feeling of being at home in your body and in the world, an acceptance that you are embedded in this life that is yours. So if you maintain a narcissistic connection to the world, in Salomé's terms, you don't fear freedom. You feel that you are a part of the universe, and therefore the universe can never be a hostile place you need to escape from, because you are an intrinsic part of it and you are in the right place. She was a pioneer of female intellectual independence. She lived a life that many thought was scandalous at the time, having many lovers, for instance, setting herself on a par with men in her discussions about her beliefs. She refused to be defined by her relationships with famous men. She was independent and famously refused to consummate her marriage to Friedrich Andreas to maintain her inner space. She believed that women were inherently more whole, more complete, and closer to the infinite than men, as men were more preoccupied with their earthly existence. So she believed that women had a unique type of existential power. I tend to agree. She believed that freedom was the right to pursue truth, wherever it led, regardless of social convention and religious dogma. If you had asked Lou Andreas Salome if she thought that freedom was scary, she would have laughed at you. To her, the finitude of being an individual is just a temporary costume worn by a life force that is infinite, and freedom is your courage to be both the dancer and the dance. A much underrated philosopher, well worth reading.